this was a little while ago now because I was just kind of answering questions, but I was kind of outlining what we're talking about a bit. But before I kind of redo that, do you want to just give a little intro to yourself, just to
Yeah, absolutely.
inform
Sure,
people? Yeah.
yeah. So I joined the military at 18, Air Force. After that, enrolled into University of Arizona Pre-Med. I was a triple major, nutritional science, chemistry, and psychology. In nutritional science, I started to receive some information that didn't totally.
Did he just pause for me, or can you comment if you lost him? Oh, yeah. So he cut out. Okay, accept him again. I just added him again. He'll be back. All right,
I
so
didn't know.
yeah, yeah, all good, all good.
Okay, I don't know what happened. That's
Yeah.
strange. Anyway, yeah, so as a triple major, pre-med, nutritional science, chemistry, and psychology, after graduating, I just got really curious before going to medical school and started studying Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, shamanism, got into alchemy, the ancient arts of turning gold into medicine and things like that, which is when I started my company, Now Alchemy, which is a form of nano gold that people actually drink for cellular communication. It helps with neurocognitive disorders and all kinds of things like that. And interestingly, I got really into diet, which is why I'm so passionate about this topic and the dietary guidelines and the grains and the meat. And there's so much. I don't want to use the term misinformation, but there's so much information out there, and there's so much confusion and distortion. And so yeah, when you offered this conversation, I thought it was really cool of you because not a lot of people actually do that. Most people, they're just like, F you, I disagree, but not a lot of people are like, hey, let's talk about it. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, no, I'd say the same to you in the sense that for the success rate of actually turning one of these disagreements into an IG live, when it is something that I'll offer if we're just going back and forth and not getting anywhere. It's pretty low, so so you're one of the
Yeah, I
few.
was surprised.
Um,
Dude, I haven't even
so
gone live in like four years.
yeah,
Like,
so
yeah.
it's not something that I do often, and so yeah, thanks for the intro, and I think just to kind of outline where it came from, I believe it was on one of Simon Hill's videos. You had commented, I know you tagged me, you tagged Simon. It might not have been Simon's video. Either way, we were both tagged in there. And there was some back and forth in the comments about like the guidelines and a couple specific claims really stood out that I wanted to discuss with you, and that was one that you believe that most people do follow the guidelines. We'll say U.S. guidelines as based on the references and whatnot that were shared, and that we'd be better off. This is something that needs to be unpacked a little bit, but better off not following the guidelines and instead sort of following our own bodies, so to speak, intuition, etc. And we can get into that. But yeah, I was just curious then, like what evidence would there be, because this is contrary to like everything I've seen, that people actually do follow the guidelines?
Yeah. So my idea of so there's a spectrum of following, you know, and my perspective on the USDA guidelines is more so, to be honest, that they have infiltrated the health of Americans. I see the USDA as a federal organization that gets a lot of funding from a lot of different places involved in agriculture and farming, as well as pharmacy. I see the USDA as an organization that has some conflict of interests built into it. Obviously, it's very hard to find like concrete evidence of that, but I have done enough research on that to formulate my own opinions on it. I actually even have some names, of USDA members that have been found to have like over 100 conflict of interests, with them, which I can share later on. But every once in a while, they switch up their group about every 5 years, and so every once in a while, they need to disclose information that might potentially lead to conflicts of information. And what comes through is that there are a lot of um, relationships that basically shouldn't be happening between members of the USDA and members of pharmaceutical industry and agricultural industry, where they're getting paid to basically create research projects. So the USDA is also involved in research and development and education. So it's almost like a monopoly where they have research, development, education, farming and agriculture, and then even, pharmaceuticals and medicine. And so being a federal agency, but not being funded by the government and being funded by some of the agencies they work with, I see a big conflict of interest there. And then when I look at things like the food pyramid, which I know is outdated now, but I'm sure that the my plate thing will be outdated eventually too, once enough evidence comes to light that that's not healthy either. The food pyramid's insane. Like they literally recommended like cupcakes and sweets at the top, once a day. It's okay to have a
Well,
little bit of.
can I just push back on that a little bit? There are certain recommendations that are limits, right? So they say limit maximum X per day. It's not necessarily you need to eat this
Right,
or recommending this per day.
right,
But
totally, I
going
get
back
that.
to the initial question, background of the dietary guide, I can grant everything you just said. I can grant every conflict of interest in the world. What the question was is like what evidence is there that people are actually following it, right? Like that's the
Right,
key.
exactly. So
Yeah,
I
so
use the
that's what I want.
term right. So I'm using the term infiltration, and I was trying to set that up. But basically, the reason I use the term infiltration is because grains and sugars are extremely addicting. And so when I'm saying there's an amount of following, like the food pyramid recommended up to 11 servings of whole grains every day. And it was at the base where the first thing in the morning, at your breakfast, you have your cereal. That sets people up for failure because grains and sugars are extremely addicting. It spikes your insulin 4 to 5 hours later, you're going to want more. And so they're setting some people up for something that's in a way impossible to actually follow because you're blunting your insulin response. And sugars are like drugs, where the effect that it has on you lessens over time, and especially with daily use. So it starts with maybe 11 servings. 11 servings doesn't do for you energetically what it did 2 years ago, and now it's becoming 15 servings or 20 servings.
So you're saying that people were actually, well, we have to understand that the dietary guidelines are they're more than just grains or whole grains, right? Obviously, there's a whole bunch of specific recommendations, and if I were measuring adherence and based on the data that we do have, I would probably put the cutoff as like hitting 80% of recommendations or more as pretty decent adherence.
Okay.
That said, you know, let's just grant that okay, food pyramid. I can't remember the exact numbers. We'll say 11 servings a day of whole grains is what they
Six
were
to
recommending.
11, it
Okay,
was.
sure. Let's say six plus even.
Mhm.
What evidence is there that Americans are hitting that serving recommendation for whole grains?
Well, how many people do you know that don't eat whole grains? I mean, they're
Oh,
literally, the evidence is all around you. Everybody eats whole
well,
grains.
here we can look at the guidelines. Once this flips around, we can look at the guideline targets. So this is just for essentially a 3 ounce equivalent. It's about 97% of people who don't even hit 3 servings a day, let alone 11. And this is from the most recent report for the dietary guidelines.
Servings of
Obviously,
what?
this will be.
What is the
Oh,
servings of grains?
so this is whole grains here, whole
Mhm.
grains. The line is the recommendation, which for a 2,000 calorie diet would be 3 ounces or 3 serving equivalents per day. Now, if we look at refined grains, they're shooting past 3 servings, and that's actually bad. It's a limit. They want to limit to less than that. So even on the grain recommendation, most people are not hitting the whole grain recommendations and far exceeding
Wait,
the
what
refined
is
grain
this study?
recommendations.
But what is this
No,
study though?
so this is from NHANES, and this is what they publish in the actual dietary guidelines report. So when they come out with the guidelines, they look at like what are the different recommendations we're making, how have people been doing with hitting those recommendations using nationally representative sample.
Okay, but I have no idea what this NHANES study is or what they were
Oh, it's
measuring or
it's
who these
it's like
people are.
yeah,
Where,
yeah,
like, what is
yeah.
the demographic?
Yeah, so it's across America. So they take representative samples from different parts of America, across America, several tens of thousands. I mean, I can pull up the exact numbers. And they survey them on their regular intake. So like, let's say you don't need to know exactly, but if someone were to ask you, in a week on average, how many servings of XYZ do you consume? And they'll have specific examples of the types of foods. Most people will be in the ballpark. Like if you ask me how many servings of whole grains do you eat, in a week, sure, I might be off by a few, but it's not going to be, I'm not going to be eating 20, 30 servings in a week and then say I'm eating two, right? There's going to be a relative accuracy to those survey questions. So that's sort of how they do this with people that represent the average American and in huge numbers.
But how
And
do you?
Haynes is like,
Yeah,
yeah, N Haynes is like, um, it's
yeah. Like, what is it?
at this point one of the oldest cohorts that's been followed in this sense, and they update it every, I think, two or maybe every year, but every 2 years at least. Um, and this is just right in, like, if you ever read the guidelines as they are, this is the data they primarily cite for adherence. Um, and I mean it's the nutrition and health. Sorry, the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey is what it stands for.
Yeah, who funds them?
So that one's primarily NIH, I believe. I can double check.
Yeah. There's over, the thing with these, the thing about a lot of these studies, I spend so much time deciphering one study because there's over 30,000 peer-reviewed studies that are published on one of my favorite sites, PubMed,
Mm-hmm.
every single year.
Yeah.
And to be honest, one of the reasons I didn't end up going the Western path was because when I did research projects with the doctor that I was working for as an undergrad, I saw a lot of corruption in the research environment, and it wasn't even conscious. It was like subconscious corruption. It was like, I'm being funded, I have a hypothesis. If I don't prove my hypothesis and it's wrong and I just wasted tens of thousands of dollars, I'm going to lose my job as a researcher. And I just, a lot of these studies, I have to really understand who these people are, where the funding's coming from, and like what the demographic
Yeah.
is in
So
order to know
there's a
what to.
couple things I would say to that. For one, I just want to bring back to the question was like, what evidence do you have that people are following the guidelines? That has yet to be answered. But the other part of that is like, are you saying that if, you know, I'll pick a meat company for example. If like a meat company funds a study of say um, beef versus um, soy or something for like muscle gains or whatever, that we would like certainly or almost certainly see that the meat comes out on top.
Wait, for can you repeat that again?
Yeah, so like
Meat versus soy
just for a
for what?
hypothetical. Yeah, just for
Yeah.
hypothetical, let's say a meat company, a beef company, whatever, wanted to fund a study comparing meat to soy for muscle gains, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that, oh, the meat company's definitely gonna the meat's gonna come out on top for sure?
No, it
Okay.
might not, but if it doesn't, they're not going to publish
Oh,
it.
well, so actually, let me show you that's not the case either. So let me pull it up here. I've got it right here. So I'll share this. So this was a study published in the Journal of Nutrition. This was comparing meals with beef or plant protein. They used a more processed plant protein and a more whole protein source. We can go into, I mean, people can look up the titles right there. They can look at what the different foods were. So lean beef here, incomplete or complementary was a mix of navy and black beans with whole wheat bread. And then the single incomplete protein source was black bean or whole wheat bread.
Mhm.
And this was funded by, let me just show you. This was funded by the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, a contractor of the beef checkoff. Now, if we go to the results or just the conclusions,
Mhm.
the, let's see, isonitrogenous meals containing a moderate serving of total protein from foods providing complete, which was
Mhm.
beef, complementary, which was the beans and navy beans and wheat, or the incomplete protein, which was just one or the other, do
Right.
not differently stimulate muscle protein synthesis after a meal and daily.
Mhm.
So this actually does exactly what you said they wouldn't publish, and they published it, and they funded it.
So I know the owners of Cafe Gratitude. They're a vegan restaurant
I
in
know
Los
who they are,
Angeles.
yeah.
Right, exactly. They're a vegan restaurant, but they also do cattling. They
Mhm.
sell beef. They have a cattle farm.
Yeah.
And when people figured out that they were also slaughtering cattle, there was a big uproar. But just because somebody is ranching cattle or making money off of beef doesn't mean they're not also making money off of
No, no,
beans
no,
or
no.
meat.
this is the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Their only job is to promote beef. That's
And they're
literally
not,
their only job.
so their only job is to promote beef, and they're publishing a study that shows that beans and whole grains are a better source of protein than beef?
No, no, they showed that they were essentially equal.
Equal.
Yeah.
That just doesn't even make any sense.
If
Can you
matched,
explain the study?
yeah, yeah. If match, so basically, do you know what muscle protein synthesis is?
Of course I
Yeah,
know this
yeah.
creation of proteins are, yeah.
So if you match total protein content, you get the same result. Whereas other studies previously, usually looking at like acute responses, might show
Okay.
that one is better than the other, but as a whole, there's no difference. So, and that's what this shows. But like the point isn't to dive into this study necessarily. The point is you claimed that that they wouldn't publish a study that did not serve their interests. This does not serve
I
their
think
interests,
that doesn't
yet they
not
published
serve
it.
their interests. That doesn't not serve their,
Show,
you're just
wait,
saying,
wait, showing that beef does not outperform beans does not serve the National
they're
Cattlemen's
not
Beef Association's
they're
interests?
not saying, but they're not saying that beef, they're not saying beans outperform beef though.
No,
What you're saying they say is that protein is protein.
yes, but they hypothesized that the beef would outperform it. A lot of people would have hypothesized that, and they did themselves, the authors here. Like it's in the paper. That's what they thought would happen.
Okay, that's
What they
fine. They're
expect.
saying
Yeah,
protein is protein.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly,
They're
exactly.
not
So
saying beans are better than beef.
no, but that what they normally say, and what all of their messaging is across the board is that beef is superior to beans, and they didn't show that here.
They're
So
not
it's going
saying
no
beans
matter
are superior to beef, so I don't understand what your point
no.
is.
My point is, if okay, if my goal was to promote something, would I
Dude, I
not want to make it
get
appear
it.
better?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, sure.
no, but
If
Brent,
this, no, 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 stop.
no,
If this study said beans outperformed beef, then you would have me. I'd be like, yeah, that's really weird. But they're not actually saying
yeah.
that.
So no,
So I
but
don't get
just to
the
be
point.
clear, if my purpose was to promote something, right, to promote product X, and I was publishing a study, and the funders had all of this role in the study, would I not would I not make product X look better than the alternative?
I guess it depends on who funded the study. I would have
No.
to do some
I'm saying
research
let's
into
say I'm
that.
funding it. Let's say I'm funding it. It's my product, and I'm
But
funding
do
it.
you know who funded this though?
I literally went over. I showed it on the screen. National Cattlemen's Beef Association from the Beef Checkoff Association.
And you don't think they might have relationships with other organizations and
No,
businesses and
no. Do you know what
collaborations?
no? The National Cattlemen's Beef
Right.
Association's role is to
Right.
promote the beef industry.
Yeah.
That is literally their job. It's like the
Yeah, but
soy.
do you know anybody, do you work for them? Do you know anybody that works
No,
for them?
no. But I don't have to look. I
You
don't
don't have
have to work
to,
for.
of course.
No, no.
You're taking other people's words for these studies. That's the thing. It's when you treat science like a religion, just because
I'm
something
not.
is written or because somebody said this was their intention, you don't know who they are. You're basically treating this like a doctrine. You're
No, I'm
trusting
not.
other people's words for all this
No, no.
information. You know, like you don't know who
Here,
these people are.
but no.
You
Here's
only
the
know their
thing.
reputation.
No.
You don't know who they're working with behind the scenes. They could be
Yeah.
working with anybody.
Okay. So let's just say that I wanted to say, the studies on smoking. It's all big government. They just want us to quit smoking. I don't trust the science because who would? Would you agree with me in saying that, oh, smoking is fine then because I just don't trust it. I don't trust the science.
Not necessarily. No, it
Why
depends on
not?
what you smoke. Well, it depends on
No,
what you're
tobacco,
smoking.
cigarettes. The cigarettes that the government tells us not to smoke and that studies have shown are harmful for
Right.
us.
Right. Well, because of all the chemicals, which is like over 100 that are put in cigarettes, I would say that they're bad because
No,
the
no,
chemicals are so
but hey,
like
that's based on the science, right? That's based on we don't want to
that's
trust the
based on the
science here.
chemistry. No, that's based on chemistry and biology.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
based on
So
the
the
science.
science
Science is a
around
see. This
no,
is
the
what I'm
science
saying is that
behind those chemicals. No, this is the
science is
problem.
science is not a religion. It's a philosophy, and we can't take this text and treat it like a religion and just
But
think that
you're
just because it's written
but
means
that's
that it's
exactly
true.
what you're
We
doing
have
with
to
chemicals.
remain, that's
That,
what
that
we have to remain open-minded to.
but that's
No, because I
exactly what you're
understand.
doing. No,
No,
because
because
you're saying
no,
yes,
it's not. Because I
yeah,
actually know what a chemical is. And
yes.
because I have treated my own body as an
So
experiment, so I can speak from personal
let's say
experience.
I experimented, I started smoking, and I felt better and thought it was the best thing for me. Would you then say it's good for me?
Now at least we're getting
No,
somewhere.
but
if
would you
if
like want just
you
yes or
smoke
no?
something,
Yeah. If I
if
smoke,
you smoke something and you personally experienced positive benefits, then I would be open-minded to thinking maybe it's good for you if you personally experience positive
so
benefits.
so
I'm not, see, that's
but
what
a
I'm
minute,
saying.
but hold on,
I'm not
a
going to
minute
treat
ago you said it's
science like a
bad because
religion.
no, but a minute ago you said it would be bad because of the chemicals in it. Now you're backtracking on that because I felt
No,
good
I'm
all of a
not.
sudden.
That's my opinion. But you're talking about you. I don't, I have my opinion,
Yes,
but if you're saying you experience benefits, I'm going to be
yes.
open-minded to thinking maybe it's okay. And that's
W-
why I'm saying science is a
but
philosophy, not a religion. You have to
I'm
stay
not talking
open-minded.
short. I'm not talking short term though here
Oh,
either. I
now,
mean,
okay.
let
Okay, well, you didn't say that.
but no, but just to be clear, I mean that's what we're talking about with like chronic disease risk in general, right? So let's say I smoked, I felt good, maybe I was losing some weight, mental clarity, etc. And I was like, you know what? Screw these studies. They're all funded by big government, and I don't trust anybody running them. You know what? I think smoking doesn't cause lung cancer because I feel good. Would you accept that as a reasonable claim to make?
What happened when the CDC told us that we needed
So
to
you
wear
didn't answer the
masks?
question. You didn't answer the question though.
I'm answering
No,
the question right
no, no.
now.
My question.
Science, science every 5 to 10 years goes back
So
and changes its mind with
so,
new
but
information, which is why
it
these
doesn't
research,
completely turn.
you're attaching to research studies, forgetting that research studies in the future will prove that research
Not
study wrong.
necessarily. Not
But
we
it's
will
happened so many
adjust. No,
times
no,
though.
no. We will adjust. It's not that common that when there's consensus like that it flips entirely. But going back to the question, in the case of, look, I smoked, lost some weight, mental clarity, felt better. I don't trust the science because screw the science. I don't think smoking causes lung cancer. Would you agree with me that smoking doesn't cause lung cancer based on that reasoning?
Uh, yeah. So again, you're talking about
It's
smoking
it's a
synthetic
yes or
cigarettes.
yes. No, it's a
No, are
yes
you
or
talking
no
about
question.
smoking synthetic cigarettes or smoking cannabis or smoking Blue Lotus? What
No,
is
no,
it you're talking about
cigarettes,
smoking?
cigarettes.
Right, because of the toxins added to and present
No, but I
in the cigarettes,
feel good. I feel good though.
I think that eventually they would probably cause lung cancer because of the toxins. That's what I
No,
would think.
so I feel good, and the science on those toxins is just
Right.
garbage. It's just science.
hmm
Would you say that smoking is then healthy?
Yeah, I think I see things in a quantum way. I don't see them in a linear way. I don't see things as this is healthy, this is not healthy. I think there are a lot of factors around it, a lot of nuances, and we need to look at things holistically to decide what's right for a person. What if a person, for whatever reason, is so extremely stressed out that actually having a little bit of
No,
nicotine lowers their
I'm talking
cortisol
about
levels
lung
to the
cancer. I'm
point
talking about
where
lung cancer. I'm
yeah, I
talking about
am
lung
too.
cancer specifically. Okay.
I am too. I am too, because everything is connected, as is the immune system. And if you can lower your cortisol levels, it will also decrease your likelihood of getting cancer, possibly more than smoking would increase it. So
So,
everything is
so,
individual. And that's what I'm
so,
saying. Like we have to focus on everything individually. Everything is quantum,
but
not linear. You can't
just so
treat
I'm
every
clear,
body like the same body.
but no, I'm not treating everybody like the same body. Obviously, there's a spectrum. But just so I'm clear, you think that if, let's say, I was stressed out, I started smoking, felt better, lost weight, etc., whatever. You think that it might actually lower my lung cancer risk by smoking in that
I
case?
don't know.
That's within
I
the
would.
realm of possibility,
Uh,
like reasonable
I do think,
possibility.
yeah, I actually honestly, yeah, not the synthetic chemicals in
Oh, no,
the cigarette,
again,
but like if you were smoking like
I don't trust
if
the science. I
if
don't trust the science on the synthetic
if
chemicals. I don't trust it. I feel good. I feel excellent smoking. I've lost weight. I'm lower stress. Does smoking lower my lung cancer risk in that situation?
I believe, I honestly believe that anything is possible, and I do
So
believe that the mind, I do believe that the mind is more powerful than any research study, which research studies create a placebo effect, to be honest, with the things that doctors tell their patients, which come from the research studies, create an entire culture around things that a lot of studies are funded to create. And I think that the mind is powerful enough that if you smoked and believed it would decrease your likelihood of lung cancer, that might actually be the case.
so now let's push that a step further. Do you think it's more likely that it would decrease my lung cancer risk, do nothing to it, or increase it?
Uh, To be honest, that is a hypothetical that is impossible to honestly answer because
It's
again, there's
it's
so many
really not.
nuances.
No, no, because
Yeah, it is. It's a hypothetical. You're asking me to
no, no,
answer a hypothetical, and
yeah,
I couldn't responsibly do that and be honest. It's a
hypotheticals are
hypothetical.
important. No, hypotheticals are important in these situations to understand like where your beliefs are and what you value. So, like, and it doesn't have to be real life. Now, if there's certain details that you need to know to help fill out this hypothetical and answer that question, that's fine. If you need to know, hey, does this person have a history of X or whatever? That's fine. We can answer those questions. Let's paint this picture. But I think it's really important for you to answer that question of would it be more likely to decrease, do nothing, or increase our cancer risk? Because that's what we use science for. It's to understand the probabilities of the outcome. It's never to
Yeah,
guarantee it. I can't
and
guarantee any outcome.
again,
So
I don't believe that life it runs on probabilities. I think there's more to consciousness. You see, like it seems to me like you're more about probabilities and I'm more about consciousness. And I completely respect your stance on the probabilities and the linear calculative aspect of science, and I love that. But I think there's an aspect of consciousness and spirituality and intention and energy that comes into it too, and there's sort of a harmony
and
between the two of those. So that's why
and
like
you
I genuinely
but
can't answer that question.
you're still talking about probabilities. You just think that if you believe certain things, if you have whatever these variables are that you're inserting, you're just suggesting that you think they have an impact.
I'm not
Sure, let's go with it.
inserting variables. Those variables exist whether
Yeah,
I believe they exist or
no,
not.
no, no. I mean, you're inserting them into the hypothetical, like you're expanding on the details that are there, is what I mean. So you're essentially saying that these variables impact what the outcome would be. So, including all those, including intentions, including beliefs, placebo, etc. What do you think? Like, what do you think is the greatest probability? I think this is so critical to having a discussion about whether or not science is relevant.
Yeah, well, if you really want to, I mean, I'll give you a direct answer. I don't think the question was super direct, but to be honest, I personally think that burning something makes it a carcinogen, whether you're cooking meat or burning tobacco or whatever it is. That's where carcinogens come from, and that's what glycation is. Tobacco in and of itself, I don't think is a carcinogen, but I think burning things into your lungs is carcinogenic because that's what burning does. So that's my
But
answer to the question.
but so you do think well, for starters, you're then suggesting that you do think it would cause cancer, but even this
No, I
idea
don't.
that
No, no,
burning
no, no. First of all, no, I don't think it would cause cancer. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that burning things is carcinogenic. I'm not going to say that smoking is going to cause cancer.
so there's a couple things there. By saying it's carcinogenic, carcinogens are cancer causing agents, so you are suggesting that you're creating cancer causing agents and then consuming them. And second, the knowledge that burning something is carcinogenic would largely be based on scientific research, again, which we don't trust.
Yeah, I mean, because you're also forgetting that tobacco and nicotine, which becomes nicotinamide, which repairs DNA, also has health
Yeah,
benefits. So
and
you're talking
that's
about,
why
yeah,
no,
but
no,
that's what I'm saying, dude. Life is not so linear. Things aren't so simple. You want to put things in a box and say
no, I
burning
don't.
cause, yeah, you do. You want to say
No, I'm
smoking
not.
causes cancer, but life doesn't work that way. It
No,
just
no,
doesn't.
because it increases your likelihood of developing cancer. It is a causal agent, but it's not
Depending on what
100%
you're
penetrant.
smoking.
But it's not
It's
100%. No,
depending on who you
we
are.
already talked. It's cigarette. Every time I say smoking here, I mean
Yeah, but
cigarettes.
depending on
Um,
who you are, depending
okay,
on your
that's
circumstances.
fine. But the point is that the like for something to be causally associated with an outcome, it doesn't have to cause it 100% of time. So I just again, that's why it comes back to probabilities. I just simply want to know like because you sort of muddied the waters by saying that it is a carcinogen, but you don't think it would cause cancer. Like that's a bit
I
confusing.
don't think I muddied the waters at all. I'm trying to get something through to you that you can't just put something into a box and simplify it as saying A plus B causes cancer. That's just not how life works. That's what I'm trying to explain.
So do you think if I just like went up and like snorted some asbestos from old walls that I wouldn't be increasing my cancer
Dude,
risk?
you use these really
No,
extreme
it's
examples, and I don't even know what the point
no
of
no
what you're asking me is
it's
at this point.
yeah.
Like, how
So
does this
let me
have to do with
clarify.
dietary
Yeah,
guidelines and what?
let me
How does
clarify.
this even part of the conversation?
Let me clarify. So the reason I'm using extreme examples is because I think it demonstrates the issues with your reasoning. Because it's not that it's not that what we're discussing, whether it's diet related or whatever, that it's as extreme as smoking or asbestos or whatever. But the logic still applies, right? If you're not going to trust science, or you believe that these outcomes,
I'm not
that
saying
we
I
can't.
don't trust
No, please
science.
let me finish. 'Cause I want to
Yeah,
explain
but
how I got.
be careful with what you're
Okay,
saying.
I
Saying I
mean,
don't trust science, that's ridiculous.
well, that's sort of what you suggested throughout
No,
the
it's
whole
not what I
time.
suggested. It's not what I said. You're putting words in my mouth.
Well,
I'm a
no, sorry,
scientist. I
sorry.
understand what science is. I'm open-minded about it. What I'm saying is science is philosophical and it constantly learns more and proves itself wrong, and we need to remain open-minded. I'm not saying I don't trust it. I'm saying more I don't trust the people that I don't know behind certain studies is what I'm saying.
Okay, so you don't trust the people conducting most of these studies. I'm
Because
assuming
it's
that you
been
don't know most people
proven
conducting most.
because yeah, because there is
Okay,
human error and there is researcher bias and that is just impossible to avoid. So we need to be open-minded with these
yeah,
researches.
but what happens when you have consistent results across multiple populations with different samples, different age groups, different demographics, different background, health history,
Yeah.
all pointing in the same direction? Then what?
Yeah, and then on the flip side of the coin, you have the same exact thing pointing in the
No,
opposite
you don't.
direction.
No, you
Yes,
don't.
we do.
No,
We
you.
have that with carnivore and with
No,
veganism.
no, you
We
don't.
have it with
No,
meat-based
no,
and
no,
with
no, no. Hold
grain-based.
on, hold
Yes,
on,
we
hold on.
do. It's
No,
all
this is critical. This is critical. You're saying we have the same evidence for a carnivore diet as we do for a vegan diet? What prospective cohort study do we have on a carnivore diet? Name one.
um okay, I will.
There isn't one.
Sure.
I'm telling
I'm
you right
just
now.
really
But
surprised
please,
that you didn't know
no,
that,
no,
but
there
sure.
isn't one. There isn't
National
one. I'm telling you.
Institute of Health, PubMed, National Library of
No,
Medicine, the
you're
ketogenic diet of cardiovascular diseases, CD. Do you want me to name it? I'm
yeah,
naming
yeah.
it right now.
Please
Yeah.
title the
So
carnivore
the
prospective cohort.
ketogenic diet, ketogenic is basically meat and cheese based. So
No, there's still veggies in there. That's not a carnivore diet. So you claimed carnivore diet, right? You made the
okay, what
claim
I'm
about.
talking about is meat based. I'm
Okay,
talking about a meat
but
based diet.
do you concede that there is no prospective cohort study on a carnivore diet, thus a carnivore diet does not have equivalent evidence to a vegan diet?
The carnivore diet is like how new.
So
There's not a lot of
so
time to
no,
create
that's
studies on
new
that
new is
specific
aside.
diet.
No, new is
But
aside
what
from
I'm
is
what
irrelevant.
what I'm
Hold
talking
on,
about is
you
what I'm
said
talking about is ketosis. The
okay,
carnivore
but
diet causes
you're
ketosis.
avoiding. No, you're
So
avoiding
no, I'm
the
not.
claim. Yes, you
I'm
are.
gonna talk about autophagy. I'm gonna talk
Okay,
about ketosis, the
hold
benefits of
on,
burning ketone bodies, which the carnivore diet induces. So
hold on.
we can infer that by being on the carnivore diet, you're gonna get the benefits of ketosis. You're going to get the benefits of autophagy. And there are tons of studies that prove that ketosis and autophagy lower the risk of nearly literally every disease.
So
And
hold on,
that's all over PubMed, all
hold
over the
on. But please let
peer-reviewed
me
studies
interject.
that you love.
Your claim was that we have the same evidence for a carnivore diet as we do for a vegan diet. We have randomized controlled trials, including meta-analyses of randomized controlled trials on vegan diets. We have prospective cohort studies, numerous of them, looking at vegan diets. We have none of that for a carnivore diet. Will you at
Okay,
least concede that point? No,
all
will you
right.
at least
Well,
concede that point?
first of all, it's
Can you
clear that I'm
please
talking to a
at
vegan, right?
least concede?
It's clear that I'm
Can you
talking to a
please
vegan right
concede
now.
that
So can we
point?
just let's just let people know you are a vegan, right?
Oh yeah, I
So
am absolutely.
this is near and dear
That's
to
not
you.
hidden.
This is
It's
very
named
near and dear. I'm not saying it's hidden. I'm just saying this is
no,
very clearly a
no,
passionate
no,
topic
no.
to you.
You see, you're going to try to paint it as though I'm being biased here. I'm just asking you
You
to
are.
answer a yes
It's
or no. No,
impossible for you not
I'm
to be biased. You're
no,
literally vegan. You have to be
no, no.
biased.
I can
You have
have a bias.
adopted
No,
this
no.
lifestyle. So of
Hold on,
course you're biased. Don't
hold
say you're
on.
not biased. That's
No,
just
hold on.
dishonest.
I'm trying to answer that. I can have a bias, but I can also put that bias aside when reviewing the literature. Now you made a
Okay, I
claim.
hope so.
Now you made a
Eventually.
claim. Hold on, let me say you made a claim that we have equivalent evidence for a vegan and carnivore diet. If you can't concede that that is not true, then I don't see the point in this discussion because that is
I
demonstrably
just
false, and you can't
I
provide a
just explained that. You didn't want to hear it because of your bias. Your
no, no,
bias
no,
is
no,
blinding you.
no.
The
Hold on.
carnivore diet
No,
causes
no.
autophagy and ketosis. We
That's
know what
mechanistic
autophagy and
speculation.
ketosis
That's
does. You
mechanistic
don't want to face
speculation.
this.
No,
You
that's
don't want to face
mechanistic.
this. I'm
No,
talking about
I can.
autophagy and
I
ketosis,
can.
which a carnivore diet
I can
induces, and you don't want to
absolutely.
face that. That's a
I can
fact.
absolutely face that and discuss it and go into detail on why mechanisms are superseded by outcomes and all of that. The point is, you claim that there is equivalent evidence. These studies that you're referencing aren't even on a carnivore specific diet. Can you at least admit that?
No, what I'm talking
So you
about.
can't admit that. Can you at least admit that, please? It'd be so much easier if you just answer that question.
I honestly, I can't admit that because I don't know that that's true. I would have to
So,
log off and look that up to know
so
for
you
sure
haven't
that that's
even
true.
like you should know
No,
that.
I've
You're
read a
excited
lot. Well, from my perspective, it seems like a lot because I've read a lot of
on a
over the
carnivore
years.
specific diet,
Carnivore
a
diet.
plant free diet.
Mostly
Okay,
ketosis,
but
to
not a
be
plant
honest.
free diet.
Which carnivore? Well, ketosis causes,
The,
ketosis and carnivore is linked. So
again, it's unbelievable that you can't answer that question. Like or admit that for one, there are no prospective cohorts or RCTs on carnivore specific diets, and two, that the references that you
I will
provided
do
were not on a carnivore specific diet.
what I think what would probably be more beneficial is to address the fact that from the research that I've done, I think that staying in ketosis and autophagy is extremely important. And wait, hang
That's
on,
a
I'm not
separate
done. I'm
topic.
not done. Just hang on, just chill. I am staying on the topic. Just relax. Okay?
No, no, I didn't say you
Just
weren't. I just said it's
relax.
a
Just
separate
take a
topic.
breath. All right. I am. What I'm saying is more importantly than answering this question is that autophagy in ketosis, as proven by countless studies, is extremely important, and that we can live in autophagy and ketosis with animal-based products and vegetables. I'm not promoting a carnivore diet.
I
I'm
didn't
not
say
promoting a
you were.
vegetable-free
Just to
diet.
be
That's
clear, I
not what
never
I'm
said you
about.
were. I just to
Right.
be clear, I
So
never said you were.
right.
But
So
you
I
made the
threw the
claim.
right.
No,
So I
you
made
made
the
the
word
yes.
just now in this message. I said carnivore, which to me means meat based. Okay, and
Okay.
I know you're attaching to the definition of that meaning zero vegetables whatsoever, and that's not my intention. Is to say that no, I'm not. No, I don't think that we should be on a zero vegetable diet, or that there are more studies supporting a zero vegetable
Okay.
diet than meat. No, when I was talking about carnivore, I meant meat based and primarily ketosis and autophagy. That's what
Okay.
I was
And
referring.
then so now my next question would be, why should we trust any of like forget about the fact that its mechanisms
Dude,
etc.
I can
But
answer
why should
that
we trust them?
question, man.
Yeah,
Bro,
please
I
do.
can answer that question. I went through hell personally experiencing all of these diets. I was vegan for 2 years. I was raw vegan for a year. I did full on raw carnivore, literally meaning 0 grams of sugar, not an apple, not a veg, nothing for a year. Like I did these things personally to see how they would affect my biology because I don't trust them. So to answer the question, yes, I think we should read these studies and take them as a grain of salt and as a suggestion and then experiment with our bodies. That's what I personally think. And that's what I mean when I say to you we should follow our intuition, that's what I mean. That we have to all experience is knowledge and all knowledge is self-knowledge. The only way to come to health knowledge is through experience, personal experience. So we have to experience these diets and try different things like trying on, clothes to know what they really do. That's what I'm saying.
But do I have to smoke to know that it's bad for me? Right? Like this just comes back to
Keep
that.
bringing
It's
it back to
no
smoking.
because
Why? That's such an intense
because
example. What
no
are you
no
talking about? That's
there's a
like saying,
reason.
do I
There's
need
a
to jump
reason.
off a bridge to know it's going to kill me? That's just,
Yeah. So,
we're talking about diet. We're not talking about drugs.
well,
That's a
okay.
different
Sure. Should I go on a
conversation.
donut only diet? Should I go on a donut only diet because my
Dude,
body
no,
feels like it?
again, you keep
Great.
bringing up these extreme examples. We're not talking about drugs. I
See,
don't I don't get
the
it. We're
fact.
talking
Here's
about
the thing.
food and
No,
diet.
here's the thing. No, well, I just talked donuts are food, but the fact that um the fact that you view these as so extreme but can't answer that question just shows that there's a flaw in your logic. Yes, they're extreme, but if we were to apply your logic, if you need to try everything for yourself, forget about the studies.
No, but
Studies are
you
just
shouldn't. No,
okay.
you
Okay,
shouldn't apply my logic to everything. You should only apply it to what we're talking about, which is diet. You
okay. So
shouldn't apply
a
my
donut
logic
only
to
diet.
drugs.
Uh,
That's a different
okay,
conversation in a
so a
different
donut.
world.
Well, you haven't really provided a symmetry breaker, but let's just go with it. Let's
If
say that
you'd
it's
like
just
me
food.
to, I can.
No, but let's just go with food. Should I try an only donut diet before telling people it's probably not a good idea?
That's a that's a ridiculous question,
See,
man.
you
That's
no
a
because
crazy
you
question,
have no
dude.
symmetry
You're
breakers.
talking about
You
donuts.
yes
You're talking
yes.
about
So
donuts. You're nuts.
provide a
What are you
symmetry
talking about
breaker.
donuts for? Get the donut conversation. You're
No
talking about
no
sugar and fried oil.
yeah
What do you talk? Why? All right, I will answer the question. I'm gonna amuse you by answering the
okay.
question. Yes, do it. It will take 2 days and you'll be done.
And what if
That's the
someone
answer
feels
to this
good? No,
question.
no.
Go on
Here's
an
the
all donut
no,
diet,
no.
2 days, 3 days, and you'll know exactly what it does, and you won't go back. That's my
So have
answer
you?
to your question.
Okay,
Yes, you should try it.
let's respond to that. No, no. So Mark Hobb, researcher at Kansas State University, actually went on a Twinkie diet. He did this for like months, 10 weeks.
Oh,
He
I like
lost
them
27.
already.
He lost 27 pounds. He
Okay.
improved his blood biomarkers. He actually felt better once he started reincorporating foods. One of the first foods was meat. Guess what? He actually started to feel a bit worse. So
Uh-huh.
does that mean that the Twinkie diet is good and something to be
No,
recommended?
because what if he was on a taco diet before that? What was he eating before the
No,
Twinkie
no.
diet? Maybe the Twinkie
What?
diet was a level
Well,
up from what he was eating
no.
before
Well,
that.
actually,
Does
he was
it
a
say
nutrition
in the
researcher who
study?
ate.
Does
No,
it
no.
say
Yeah.
in the
No.
study?
Oh
Does
my
it
God.
say what he
I'm trying to
ate before
answer.
he went on the Twinkie diet?
So yeah.
What if he was on a cigarette diet before the
No.
Twinkie
No. Oh
diet?
my God. So let me explain. Let me explain. He was on a relatively well-rounded Mediterranean style diet as a actual nutrition researcher who ate
Okay.
things like he ate meat, he ate veggies,
Yeah.
etc. And
Mm-hmm.
when he went on this
Sure.
Twinkie-based diet,
Calories. It's calorie in, calorie out. That's all that was. He lost weight because he took in less calories.
so so
That's all it was.
so if eating a Twinkie diet leads to him consuming less calories, losing weight, feeling better, does that mean he should stay on the Twinkie diet?
No, no. What happened after that? What
Yeah.
happened? How long did he feel better for? Like
Well,
what
so he did
concluded
it.
the
He did it
study?
for 10 weeks. He did it for
He
10 weeks before
ate
reintroducing
only
food.
Twinkies for 10 weeks?
Twinkies, and then he peppered in some other ultra processed foods like reading here Doritos, Oreos, and other treats.
What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah,
Okay, go
yeah. So
on.
he did.
This
This is
is
well reported.
hilarious.
This is well reported.
This is
So
madness.
um,
What, dude,
no,
what
no.
was he on?
But
Let's
here's
start
the
with
thing.
that. What pharmaceuticals was he on? Let's start with that.
I,
Is any of that involved in the
as far as
study?
I'm
Because
aware, he wasn't
clearly
on
there
it.
was something going on there that was more
Well,
than just
no, no, no.
Twinkies and Doritos.
Here's the thing. So you
This is,
don't believe? No, no. You don't even believe somebody else when they have these personal
I
experiences.
don't
Why should
know
anyone
that
believe you?
person. I don't know.
I don't know you.
I don't even
I
know
don't know
you.
you. I don't know
I
you. No,
don't
no.
I
Nobody
don't know
watching
you,
this
and
knows
you're
you.
reading something that somebody else said that I don't know. How the fuck do I know if he even did it? I don't know if he
Okay,
did it.
but here's the thing. You're saying that for one, people should try something for themselves. Now, if they try something that you don't agree with and they feel better, you just don't believe them, right?
No, I
That's
don't. No,
problem
I
one.
didn't say
Yeah.
that. I told you earlier that if you said smoking made you feel better, would I believe that it was good for you? And I said, yeah. If you said it was good for you, I would believe it was good for you. I did. I answered the opposite to that
Okay.
question.
Well, here you're not believing this person, or you're believing something else nefarious was going
I'm
on, or he
actually
wasn't actually doing it.
I'm pretty skeptical about this study, not gonna lie. I don't really believe that somebody ate donuts and Twinkies for 10 weeks and felt good. That
So
sounds
yeah, exactly. That's the
from a
point. You're not believing.
Mediterranean diet, but I don't believe that study. I'm not gonna lie. That sounds crazy.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. You just don't believe him.
I don't
So like, what are we
believe
supposed to
that
do?
because it sounds
So
yeah, because I do have a higher self. I have a sense of intuition. I have a mind to think for myself. I don't just believe everything I read. That's what indoctrination is. You can't just believe everything you read because it's peer reviewed. You don't even know who your peers are. Who are
no,
these
but
people?
no, hold on, hold on.
You know what I'm saying? Like you have to think for yourself too.
I understand that, but the point is, you're just not believing things you don't like, while believing things you like, and claiming that
No,
I'm biased.
no, it's
That's
not about
exactly what's going on
like.
here.
No, it's not like and dislike. It's about resonating with. I have a mind. I can think for myself. I don't believe everything I read. I don't believe every study on the internet. Some things I read and I resonate with, and some things I read and I don't. And that's literally what intuition is. And I do believe that people should use their intuition more and stop following things like sheep.
That's fine, but that's still not really discussing the point here. It's it's the fact that you're like there are so many layers of issues here. For one, you said that most people follow the guidelines, had no evidence for that. I provided evidence
You
to the
have no
contrary. You claim
evidence
that
for that. How many people eat grains? The guidelines recommend eating grains every day. How many people do you
and
know that eat grains every day? Probably
yes,
95%
yeah,
of
yeah.
Americans eat grains every day.
But
So
what
to
kind of grains?
some
No, what
extent,
kind of
they're
grains? What
following
kind
the
of grains?
guidelines by eating
No,
grains
no, hold on.
to
What
some
kind of
extent.
grains? What kind of grains?
Whole grains
Yeah,
and processed
and and
grains.
and and and,
People eat
and
whole,
how? No, 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 no. There's a minute. No, we already went
that
over
was
this. People can
one
rewind.
study that you
Oh
meant.
my God.
You just threw some bar graph up on the
Yeah,
screen
from N
and
Haynes.
you I,
From N Haynes.
oh it's from
Yeah.
N Haynes. Cool. So you found something that fit your narrative and you threw it up on the screen. Great.
And you had nothing that fit your narrative. That's the
I
difference.
do. It's the fact that everybody eats grains
Yeah,
and processed sugars,
and
and they're all
and
getting,
how many
ever
people?
since
Wait, hold on.
ever
What's
since
the limit? No, wait,
people,
no.
ever since
If
the
we're talking
invention
about,
of
hold on.
grains, people have
If
gotten more obese.
if we're talking about guidelines, can you even
How
tell
about this?
me? Well,
How
okay,
about
sorry,
ever
sorry. Okay,
since the
I'm in the middle of asking a
invention
question.
of the
I'm in the middle of asking.
USDA,
I'm in the
America
middle
has
of
only
asking a
gotten
question.
sicker?
I'm in the middle of asking a question here. When can you even tell me what's the upper limit for refined grains in the guidelines?
The upper limit is, I think it's like a quarter per meal in the. Are you talking about my plate or the food
No,
pyramid?
just like say a 2,000 calorie diet. What is the recommended
I think it's
maximum
like 600 calories on a 2,000 calorie diet is a
for
recommendation
refined
for grains.
grains? For
For
refined grains?
grains,
No,
for
no. So
grains.
I mean for refined grains because there's differences between refined and whole. Whole is a minimum target. Refined is a
For
maximum.
refined grains, I certainly hope it's zero because anything other than that is corrupt.
So hope by saying that you hope
No,
it's
I'm
something
answering
tells me you don't
your
know.
question.
No, but by
Dude,
saying that
you
you hope
ask
it's
a
something.
lot. Look, you're very controlling. You ask a lot of questions, and if you don't get the answer you like, you
No,
rephrase the
I
question. I'm
didn't get an
answering your
answer.
question
I
so
didn't
that we
get
can
an
move on.
answer.
What I'm
No,
saying is that I hope it's zero,
I didn't
which,
ask
and
what
anything
you
more than
hoped.
zero is corrupt.
But I didn't ask you what you hoped. I asked you what it is because you're talking about people following the guidelines. You should know the guidelines, at least the key factors.
I would assume it's about 100 to 200 calories in refined grains.
So per ounce equivalents, it's actually it's 3 ounce equivalents, whatever that translates to. It's given an ounce equivalent. But the fact of the matter is, you don't know.
I just told you it's about 200
No.
calories in
You
refined grains.
you guessed
That's what
after
I
you
said.
said you hoped it was
Are you
something
gonna
else.
are you gonna follow? Dude, you have a narrative and all you're trying to do is push your
No, I'm
narrative.
not.
What is it? Why don't you just tell us how many calories is it? Do
Well,
you
it's three
know?
ounce equivalents. An ounce is
How many calories?
roughly. I can look it up. It's not given in
Well,
calories.
okay, so
The guy.
you don't even
No,
know.
no.
You
I
asked
do
a
know. I
question
do
you
know.
don't know the
No. Hold
answer
on.
to,
I
and now you're
do.
telling me
I
you need
do.
to look it up to tell
No.
me?
Hold on. No,
That's
hold on.
fucking bullshit, man. Come on. What?
That's
How
not.
many
No, hold
calories
on.
is it?
Hold on. Let me answer. The guidelines are given in ounce equivalents. So I gave you the ounce equivalents because
Well,
that's what the guidelines are
it's
given in.
4 calories per gram. How many
So
grams is
you.
it?
Okay. You think I can do ounce to grams in my
I
head? I'm
can.
okay.
It's not that
Okay.
difficult. How many calories
So
is it?
how many grams is 3 ounces? Let's since you could do it in your head.
16 times 3 is 16, 32. So should be 40, somewhere around like 44 times 4. So
So it's
yeah, 44 times 4. So that's about 160, 170 something calories. So I
no,
was
you
right. It was about
weren't. No, you weren't.
170.
It's 85 grams. 3 ounces is
Right.
85
What's
grams.
85 times 4? Two. That's
Wait, no.
107. What's 85 times 4? Like I said,
It's not
100.
times. It's not.
Yeah, it's because
Wait. What do you?
it's 4 calories per gram. 85 grams times 4, because we're talking
So
about sugars and
240.
carbs. That's
So it's
4 calories
240,
per gram.
or no,
Yeah,
260.
right.
260.
So 60 calories more than what I said, which was 200. And you're trying to tell me I don't know.
No, you
See,
said
this is what I'm
100.
saying.
You said
You're
100 to
pushing
200,
your brain,
and you
dude. You're
didn't know.
pushing propaganda, bro. You're not listening to me.
No, you.
I said maybe around 200. It's 260, and you're trying
No,
to
you,
tell me
you
you
said
don't know.
100. No. You said you hope it was
Do you
zero.
understand?
Then no,
Dude,
hold on.
you
You
burn
won't let me
100
answer. You
calories
won't let me
walking
answer. You
15
won't let
minutes.
me answer. You said you hope it's zero. I had to ask you
I
about
do
3 or 4 times to
hope
give.
it's zero because
I
it
had
shouldn't
to
be in
ask you.
there.
I had to ask if you can just let me finish. It'd be great. I had to ask you 3 or 4 times to answer. You said you think it's around 100 to 200 grams. It turns out it's calories.
Calories.
It turns
Yeah,
out
it's
it's
260.
260.
Okay,
It turns out it's 260.
260
No,
calories. Cool. 60 calories
so
more than I thought.
no. So
So you were wrong.
it's anywhere
I would
from
like
two and a
you
half.
to acknowledge that when you told me I was wrong, you were mistaken.
You were wrong.
I was 60 calories off and
On
you
the upper
didn't even
limit.
know. You
On
had
the
to
upper
look it
limit.
up. You
On the
had
upper
to look
limit
it
being
up.
most.
You had to
I
look
didn't know the
it
convert.
up. I was 60 calories
No.
up. You posed the question and didn't even know the
Holy!
answer yourself.
I did know the question. I didn't
And
know the answer.
let's just talk about, no, you didn't. Let's just talk
I
about
did.
the fact
Yeah.
that they shouldn't be in there at all. Dude, dietary guidelines, if they actually cared about Americans and you and me, would say zero. They shouldn't be recommending any refined sugars.
They
So can
aren't.
you tell me why
They
they
aren't
are?
recommending them. They aren't recommending them.
You just told me that was the dietary guidelines.
No. That's the maximum limit. Right.
Yeah, why
So
maximum
somebody
limit
can say,
should be
holy.
zero. It shouldn't be.
Okay. Somebody can say, no. Just hold on. If I say do not consume more than two alcoholic drinks a week, am I recommending alcohol?
You're recommending no more than two because that's how
Yeah.
people are going to take it.
No, no, no.
Yes. If
But am I? No,
you
no, no,
say
no, no.
don't consume more than two, you're telling people they can have two a week. So yes,
No,
that they
I'm
will
no,
take
no.
that as a recommendation.
Let me rephrase because this is actually what the alcohol guidelines say. They say zero is best, but no more than two. That's
Right.
actually what they say.
They're saying it's okay to have no more than two.
Yeah.
That's a mistake. They should
Okay, so you
say
think it should just be
if
a hard line? Absolutely none. Get rid of every.
yes, that would be really good for America. The reason why America is getting so obese is because the USDA tells people they can have refined sugars and all these sort of things that they shouldn't have. If they made a hard line, America would be a lot more careful and a lot healthier, and they'd say, no, these are bad. Because also the problem is these things, refined grains, they're addicting
Well,
things. They're
I
gateways.
would disagree on that, but the other thing, the issue with you saying that people would adhere if they had the cutoff at zero, people aren't adhering currently. The vast majority of people are exceeding 3 ounces of refined grains a day. The vast majority of people are exceeding 10% of calories from saturated fat. The vast majority of people are exceeding 10% of calories from added sugars. The vast majority of people are getting the majority of their calories from ultra processed foods. These cutoffs don't even work that are more modest. You think people would listen if you just had harder cutoffs? It would look
Yes,
worse.
that would help a lot.
Oh my
Yes, they would listen
God.
more. The reason they don't have hard cutoffs is because the recommendations are so loose. They're telling people that they can have certain amounts of addictive foods, and refined grains are extremely addicting, not only chemically, but also flavor wise. And so they're going to have more, and they know this. And like I said in the beginning of our conversation, there's an insulin response. And when you have a cupcake or a piece of, candy, you get an insulin response. You get a boost of serotonin from that, and it's going to diminish over time, and you're going to need more to have the same result. Sugars are the gateway drug. And knowing this, the USDA should recommend zero, but they don't. Why do you think that they tell people that they can have things that are bad for them, knowing that they're addictive?
Because I don't think the evidence is very compelling that those modest amounts within a caloric budget are problematic. But you saying that a harder cutoff would lead to lower or majority or most people adhering. I mean, we're actually seeing an uptick in smoking recently, yet the government recommends none at all. How do you explain that?
Why do you keep talking about smoking? We're talking about dietary
Yes,
guidelines and food. We're not talking about
because you're
smoking.
saying no, because you're saying people would listen if the government said so.
And not only that, but I don't know that we're seeing, you have to prove the statement
Oh
you just made. I'm not going to take your
because
word for it.
here's the problem. I have to show the data,
No,
and then
no,
I have
there
to
isn't.
tell you
If
how
you're
I
going to
know
make a
because
claim, you need to prove it. Prove
okay,
your claim.
I understand, and I'm willing to pull up the stats and the trends for that.
Thank
But what I want
you.
to just clarify is that if I show you if I go through the effort of pulling it up here because it's not one of the things I had prepped, which is fine. Would you even accept it, or would you say I have to know the author be his best man at his wedding and et cetera, et cetera?
No, you don't need to be the best man at somebody's wedding.
Obviously not. That's a joke. But like, are you going to say I need to know the author? I need to know the people behind it. I need to
No,
know the reviewers.
it really depends on the study. That's a silly question. But if you want to pull up the study, we can
Wait,
find
wait,
out the answer to
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, hold on. Why does that depend on the study? Like, what are the delineating factors
Because
there?
not all
Because
studies are honest. You don't understand
no,
this?
no, no. I'm
Have
not.
you
No.
ever done research with anybody?
Yes, I've actually published recently a paper in the Canadian Journal of Cardiology. I'm working on another paper that should be published soon. Yes, I do so.
Yeah, you might be very lucky to just been around like super, researchers with a lot of integrity. You might be really lucky, but honestly, not a lot of them do. And to be honest, a lot of them have researcher bias. To actually, researcher bias is a human construct that's nearly impossible to avoid. So, that's what I mean by it depends on the study.
No, I understand, but how do you determine that? I think that's the
That's
critical point here. Is how
where the word intuition comes into play. I
so
believe in
it's
intuition. We
it's
talked about
unreal.
this. Intuition is real. You don't think intuition is real? Are you a
No,
computer?
no, I'm not saying intuition isn't real, but you just have to go on your intuition that okay,
How
my
do you
intuition
think?
is that all
Wait,
the
wait a
no,
minute. Do you
hold
know what
on.
ashwagandha is? Do you know
Yes,
what?
yes,
Do you know what? Do
I
you
know
know
what
what
it is. Yes, I know.
ayahuasca is?
Yes.
Do you know where these medicines came from? They came from intuition. They came from somebody getting a feeling about something and trying it. That's where true medicine comes from. It doesn't come from the computer. It doesn't come from other people's words. There's a Chinese proverb, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. I believe in that proverb. And you're taking the opposite stance to that. You're taking believe everything that you see and hear as long as it's a peer-reviewed study,
No, no,
forgetting the
that,
fact that
that's not what I'm saying.
even if it's a double blind study, the researcher their self is probably cherry picking. It's not actually blind unless an independent researcher is interpreting the data, and that's extremely rare.
So I'm not saying that I trust all research in the sense that I agree with, say, authors' conclusions, but I will give every study like a fair shake. I will evaluate the methods. If the methods are solid, sometimes authors will try to tweak the wording on conclusions and things to suit biases, whatever, but the results are the results. And that's why I actually hardly even read intros or discussions to most studies, because I want to form my own conclusions based on them. That said, here you go with the smoking stats. This was based on Canadian stats. I'm sorry if they aren't American stats. BC light smoking increasing, moderate smoking pretty stable, heavy smoking pretty stable in the last roughly decade or so, or at least up until that was 2011. I should have pulled up the more recent stats. Sorry, I didn't prep it ahead of time. For men, it's even more so stable, but overall, smokers and females have increased.
I just want to give a shout out to your followers. You have look, Cheese Black Fitness. He's got 50,000 followers. Rose Edler. Your intuition tells me not to eat animals. You have some fun. I can't believe people like this dude exist. You have a very charged audience. I just want to share some love to these people. Thank you all for being here and participating in this conversation and throwing your fire in. I appreciate your opinions.
Cool.
Yeah. So with that said, what happened in 2020 when the CDC published all these studies saying that, oh, you want to roll your eyes, and I know you're going to, but when they published studies saying masks stop the virus, and then 2 years later when Dr. Fauci said, actually, we were wrong, they don't stop the virus. But Dr. Fauci, what about the biblical studies? They were science. Don't you trust the
No,
science? Oh wait, science proves
the
wait,
overwhelming,
sometimes science proves itself wrong. Oh wait, that's right. I have a voice of intuition.
no,
There is a
the,
higher power. I
no,
can think for
the,
myself.
the
Yes,
overall
wait,
balance
no.
of evidence
I
does
can think
support.
for myself. I know what's right for myself and I know what doesn't. That's what intuition is, and I believe in that. I don't just sit in front of a computer screen all day reading studies published by people I don't know and then take it as doctrine, take it like a religion, and
No,
think that it's
nobody
true
has.
because somebody published it.
Nobody
But
has.
that's what you're pushing. That's
I think
exactly
there are.
what you're
No, no,
pushing.
no, no. I think there
Everything
are
that you
absolutely. No,
say,
no.
you
I
have to
think there are.
back up by a
Yeah.
study run by somebody you don't know. That's all you're
No,
pushing.
no.
Do you have any personal
Hold on.
experience?
I think there are absolute garbage studies out there, and I will tell you why they're garbage based on the methods, not just because my intuition says so. Also, when it comes to masking, if you want to go down that route, yeah, the overwhelming balance of evidence suggests that they do mitigate transmission, although not to
Yeah, and then they were wrong.
depending on the type of mask. And no, they weren't wrong.
The CDC and Fauci came back and actually
No,
said on second, yeah, now we realize that masks actually don't stop transmission or
no.
slow the transmission. Actually, it's vitamin D3
No.
that decreases the
Oh
likelihood
my
of
god.
contracting. Oh,
No.
do you not believe in vitamin D3? Because why? Because it's
Wait, I
natural?
don't believe in
Why
vitamin
are you
D3. What are you talking
laughing?
about?
Why are you laughing when I say that vitamin D3 decreases the likelihood of contracting coronavirus by 60%? And where does that come from? The sun.
No,
Yet
no,
they
no. Oh my
right.
god, because Mendelian
Oh
randomization
my
studies
God, is
haven't
this too much
demonstrated.
for you?
No, because the Mendelian randomization studies have not demonstrated clear benefit. The largest randomized controlled trials have not demonstrated clear benefit. There's like small pilot trials that may have, which apparently you trust because of your intuition.
What about your intuition? What does that tell you? That's what I want to know. What does your intuition tell you about sun exposure and vitamin D and contracting respiratory
Well,
viruses?
no. I mean, like
What
I
like
don't make my decisions.
let's just say somebody told you, "Hey, you're at risk of contracting a virus. You have the choice of either going outside and working out in the sun or staying indoors all day." What would you do? What would your intuition tell you to do?
Well, I wouldn't just listen to anybody on face
Right,
value like
exactly.
that.
That's my point. That's my total point. So what would your intuition tell you to do? Go outside or stay indoors?
Depends on where the virus is. Like
It depends
what
on
does
where
this
the
even
virus is.
like what I would base my decisions on the evidence. I'm not going to just look. It's like okay,
Yeah, but
let's say this.
evidence is eternal. It's never ending. There's never. That's what I mean by science as a philosophy. There's never a hard line where it's done. It's in a box. We know the truth. It's always
Oh, it's
learning, and we have to
it's
remain
not about knowing
open-minded.
the truth. I never claimed to know the absolute objective
Oh my
truth.
God, your whole
What
conversation is about
No,
knowing the
no,
absolute
no,
objective
no, it
truth
wasn't.
based
No,
on
it
the
wasn't.
evidence.
Not
That's all you're
anywhere. And
saying.
let me explain
Okay, so
why.
let me
And let
tell you
me
this: does
let me
smoking
explain why.
cause
I'm trying
cancer?
to explain why.
Yeah,
Okay,
does
can I
smoking
please
cause
explain why?
cancer? Answer that question. You don't
Yes,
believe in truth?
yes,
Okay,
I
well
do.
you just contradicted
No,
yourself.
I didn't.
You
No, I
just
didn't.
said
And now,
that you
no, no.
don't
Can
believe
I
in truth based
explain
on
why?
science.
No, I didn't contradict myself. If you let me explain, please, without interruption, for like a minute. Going now, starting now, 60 seconds. Okay.
Go ahead.
So, so it's not about the objective reaching the objective truth. It's about getting closer to the truth. There are always going to
Exactly.
be some question. There's always going to be some questions, and we try to narrow the amount of uncertainty, or narrow that range of uncertainty to get closer and closer to that truth. Yes, we don't know exactly. Now, when you say does X cause Y, I'm basing that on yes, it increases the probability, and there is they're increasing the probability of you having X outcome. I'm not saying, because people misinterpret this, I'm not saying that yes, it will absolutely cause cancer for every single individual person. What I'm saying is yes, it can cause cancer, and if you do that, you are more likely to develop cancer. That
Okay, yeah,
is
that's
what I'm saying.
fine.
Yeah, that's
That's
what I'm
really
saying.
fine. I'm in the same boat with you on that, but I think we should circle back to the dietary guidelines and whether or not those are actually helping people or hurting them. I think that recommending a certain amount of grains per day, and this is based on my ketosis studies, which I do have, which I send you some of them. Ketosis and autophagy grains take people out of both ketosis and autophagy, both of which help to repair crippled DNA, elongate mitochondria. Oh, you don't believe this? This
No,
do you
so
not
so
believe
so
this?
these are no, no. So it's not that I don't believe that these mechanisms take place. It's that I don't believe that they've been shown to over the long term lead to better
What?
outcomes in humans.
How
That's the
long is
problem.
long term though? Like,
So
are you
no, no,
talking
like
generations or
so
10 years
no. So
worth?
you can look at long term like cohort studies and whatnot over the course of decades,
Decades,
a decade or two, and
right?
seeing what the ultimate outcomes are. Are there higher risks or lower risks of cardiovascular disease, of cancers, of total mortality? That's what I would care about, because
Wait,
mechanisms
how do you
like
not? There are actual cultures who lived on fish and meat, like the Eskimos, for example, who have the highest lifespan
no, they don't.
of nearly
No,
every
the Inuit populations
one
have actually
of
no,
they
they have
have one
low.
of the
No, 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 they have
highest
low
lifespans.
life expectancies. You compare Inuit, like say Canadian populations, to the other Canadians who aren't necessarily eating great anyway. No, they have about a decade less life expectancy.
Yeah, that is not what I have seen. I don't have those studies on me, but that is
Well, it's
not what I
like
have
see,
seen
see,
on me.
but then you're at a standstill, because like I can go ahead and pull up the Stats Canada data right now comparing Inuit to the neighboring communities, and we'll see that it's like substantially lower life expectancy. In fact, I've never seen a study suggesting that they have longer life expectancies. Like that's literally the
I'll
first
have to
time I've
send those
ever
to you
heard
after
that.
this conversation. But things, it would be really nice to actually just like have a conversation without needing to use technology and pull up studies, so that we can just like share data that we've read back and forth and formulate our own opinions.
But
You get
then
what I'm saying?
but,
Like,
but, but what's the purpose? Like
we
what do
don't need
people
to
take away from
cite
that?
we don't need to cite everything we
No,
say.
but for
Like,
objective, like
it
look,
becomes
here's
very
the thing.
difficult in a
Like
conversation.
here's the thing. You're saying that these mechanisms related to keto do X, Y, and Z. Well, I can just say, okay, well, the high carb diet does the same. Then what? Then the people listening will
Yeah,
just have to
exactly. And
decide on
that's
what they've
when,
determined.
yeah, and that's when personal experience comes in really handy, but you're
Okay.
not interested in personal experience,
Well,
are you?
then
You're
I mean, no, no, but here's the problem with personal experience. You can find anecdotes for anything, like the Twinkie diet, for example. So we can
no,
go
see,
back and forth with
and
personal.
then you're using studies to discredit personal experience.
No, 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 no. That was that's like it was a dude who did
Yeah,
that. Like
yeah,
like
I know. That was a study, and you don't know that guy. I have no idea what
okay,
that study's about. Like that.
okay, that's fine. But then you're telling people to trust you.
No, I'm not telling people to trust me. I'm telling people my personal experience and what's worked for me. And I'm telling people to experiment with their bodies so that they can develop their own intuition and know what works for them. That's what I'm
But
telling
they
people.
shouldn't try a Twinkie diet or a donut diet or smoking or anything else.
You keep bringing that study up. So can we go back to that
It,
study and look at the
it,
conclusion?
no, it was just reports.
I
Uh,
would really, at this point, I'd like to see the conclusion to that study. Can you pull it up?
to be clear, it was a researcher doing the Twinkie diet and tracking his own
Yeah.
data. It was not like a published study. It was
Okay, so
reported
basically
across the media.
you're talking about BS. Why do you keep bringing this BS up?
What do you
It's
mean
a
I'm talking about BS?
random guy. It's a researcher talking about a study that it's not published. It's not peer reviewed. There's no There's no
But you
faith
don't care
behind it.
about that.
Why do you keep you're bringing random things up to try to prove a point because you know that your point is
No,
false?
no,
Why are you clinging
no,
to
no,
this
no.
so
Hold,
hard?
hold on, hold on.
You're
Wait, no, no, hold
bringing
on.
up a
What's my point
study
that's
that's
false?
null and
No, hold
void.
on.
It's a null and void
What's
study
no, hold
with
on,
nothing
hold on.
backing it.
What's my point that's false? You said I'm bringing that up to prove a point that is false. What point is that is false?
The point that's false is that a person can eat Twinkies and Doritos for 10 weeks and feel better. That's the false
So
point. I don't believe that.
that proves to me that you don't actually
I don't believe that that's true. I think you're
so
trying to
so
prove a
no
false
no
point, and you're using a
that just
random
proves
study based on a random guy
no
to try to prove that. It's just not
that
true.
just proves
It's
that just
honestly
proves to me
BS.
that you no that
Honestly,
just
it
proves to me that
discredits
you
you
don't
as
even
a
get the point.
doctor.
No,
It
that just
discredits
proves
you as a
no.
doctor that you would bring up a study from a random guy that's not peer reviewed, not based on anything, and try to use that to prove a point. Why would
So
you do that?
again, now
That discredits you.
can I respond without you interrupting again? Just because you keep doing
I'm
that.
not
Can I please? Okay.
interrupting. I'm not interrupting. I had a sentence I
Can I
wanted to
please?
finish.
I'm just
This
gonna
is
ask
a
again.
conversation. It's
Can
not
I
just
please
about you.
respond? Please respond to the claims you just made without interruption?
Yes.
Okay. So the what you just said proves to me you don't get the point of me bringing that up. It wasn't to bring up the fact that this guy did this and these were the results and they were so great and the Twinkie diet's great. That is not
I
in
didn't say
any
that was
way.
the point.
Okay, I'm clarifying that in no way, shape, or form did I bring that up as a means to demonstrate the supposed benefits for this individual on a Twinkie diet. The point of me bringing that up is that we can't just go off of short term. I tried a thing for a little bit and had certain outcomes to demonstrate anything. So
Dude.
that is point number
Right.
one. No,
So you bring
okay.
up some
So
random
again,
guy from the internet to try to
so I
prove that
can't
point.
finish without
That's all
interruption.
that's all.
So I can't finish without interruption. Is that what I'm getting here?
No, okay, go ahead and finish.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the fact of the matter is, you tell people that they should try, all sorts of different diets and or whatever, and see what works for them in the short term, without really giving much weight to the long term outcomes there, which are also important. And when I bring up examples of things that people would try, you just don't believe that they could possibly lead to good outcomes, or you don't agree that they would be
You
healthy things to do.
brought up some random guy from the internet who posted a story about him eating
Again,
Twinkies
it
and
wasn't
Doritos.
even
It's
about
not a
that.
reputable
You could
study. It's
replace
not a
it with
peer-reviewed
anything.
study.
You
I don't trust the study.
you
And
still
you
don't
bringing
get
up a
it.
study like that proves you to be an untrustworthy
No,
person.
so
It just does. Anybody with sense can see that you're
you still
manipulative.
don't get it. You
No,
still don't
no,
get it.
look. This is not an attack on your character, but honestly, you're a manipulative person to bring up a study by a
It's
random guy on the internet who ate Twinkies and donuts and try to use it to prove the point that people can't follow their intuition. That's just ridiculous.
So, to be clear, again, I am not citing Mark Hobb for any
You
reason
just
other
did.
than to. Oh my God! For any reason other than did you hear me say that part before you cut me off again? Like you literally can't sit through me
No, you took a
responding.
long break. I thought you were saying
Okay,
you weren't
okay.
citing him.
Well,
That's
please.
why I thought it ended. Go
I'll
ahead.
have to give you a signal when I'm done or something. So the point was not to bring him up to be like, this guy did this and the results were great, or he had great results. It was simply to point out the issues with saying that these you hold anecdotes above other things. Now we can throw out Mark Hobb and the Twinkie example altogether, and I can just give you a hypothetical, or I can point to
I
the
don't want your
or
hypotheticals,
here
dude.
here
That's
again.
even
So
worse.
again, you interrupted
No.
me again. I'm just going to
I
point
don't
out you
want your
interrupted me. I'm
hypotheticals.
just going to point out you interrupted me again. I could bring up a hypothetical, or I could bring up the countless examples, anecdotes of people on a vegan diet experiencing all sorts of great outcomes, or
Wait, I
people
have a
on a carnivore diet.
question.
Or you
No,
interrupted
no, no,
me
no, stop. The
again when I'm
USDA
just about
recommends
finished. You
meat.
interrupted
The
me
USDA
again when I
recommends
was just
meat. So
about to
can I just
finish.
ask? Yeah,
You
I'm
interrupted
interrupting now
me
because
again.
you're
Yes.
yeah,
So
because you're not
I'm just
talking
about
about
finished.
anything.
I'm just
No,
about
well,
finished.
I want to
I'm
ask
just
you,
about.
how can
So
you
you
support
interrupted.
the USDA and be a vegan at the same time? Because the
So
USDA recommends meat and
because
dairy. How does that
because
work?
guess what? Because guess what? I'm not biased like you like to say I am. That's why. Now, if I can
But the
finish what I
whole
was
point
saying,
of this
if I can
conversation is
finish what
that
I was saying before, it would be great. Actually, I kind of lost track at this point
yeah,
because you interrupted. I don't know how many times there.
because you weren't saying
No,
anything important. Do you think
I
that the
was. I was
USDA guidelines are accurate or not? That's the point of this
accurate for
conversation. Are they good
what?
or are they not accurate?
No. So I'd like to just finish really quick. I was like so close before you cut me off. My point was that I can bring up anecdotes, pro vegan anecdotes. I can bring up anecdotes of people on the carnivore diet experiencing absolute garbage outcomes. Just look at carnivore cringe on Instagram. And again, you're gonna say you don't know these people, whatever. That's fine. I do know personally people who've experienced great things on a vegan diet. The fact of the matter is, we can find anecdotes, these personal experiences, etc., for every dietary pattern out
I
there.
know a
That is the
vegan
point.
who developed lung cancer and then healed it on a raw meat diet. So what? I know
That's
somebody
my
who's vegan
point.
for, I
That's
know somebody who,
literally my
that's my
point.
point. So
Who
we have the same
cares?
point. I know somebody who was
No.
vegan for 12
So,
years,
so, so
got
my
lung
point.
cancer, and healed it on an all meat diet. That's my point. For every study that proves
Oh
one
my god.
hypothesis correct, there's another study that proves the opposite correct. That's my point. So you have to experiment with your body and use your own intuition. That is
No,
my point.
because you're so in these anecdotes, you're excluding outside factors. You're not adjusting for other potential confounders. You're not considering the natural course of disease. There are so many
Yeah, I
problems with
am.
them,
Actually, that's
and
exactly what I'm
no,
doing.
and
You just don't,
again,
you just,
cut off, interrupted again. And
well,
you
you
so
talk a lot,
in,
so it gets
actually,
hard to have a
I'm pretty sure
conversation with somebody who rants.
if
If you're
people rewind,
ranting,
no, no, I'm literally addressing the exact point. And if you rewind how patiently I sat there while you didn't answer the very first question I asked you about the how what evidence you have for people following dietary guidelines, I think I'm giving you enough time.
I did
You haven't
answer.
let
You
me go.
just didn't like
You
the answer.
No, you actually didn't. But
Yeah, I
anyways, people
did.
can go back and watch it.
I
People can
said
go
that
back
there's
and
a
watch that.
spectrum of following and that they all
People can
eat
go back and
grains,
watch that.
and the
No,
dietary guidelines recommend
that's
grains.
not
Therefore, they're
you
all
actually
following
you
them.
no. Speaking of rants, you went on a rant about conflicts of interest within the dietary guidelines
Because
when answering the question about
that
adherence to the
happens
guidelines.
too.
But that's irrelevant to the question. Anyways, that's beside the point. The fact of the matter is, you've cut me off repeatedly. I can't even remember what I was just in the middle of saying there.
Must not have been that important then.
Or maybe it was, and then I picked up on a more
Or
important
you
point
just
of pointing
don't
out.
have a good memory because you don't eat
Uh,
meat. I don't know.
that's
Is that
why
it?
I guess so. I don't know. I remember these studies pretty well. Someone else here doesn't. But
Well, no,
anyways,
you don't because
oh,
you're sitting in front of a computer screen pulling them up. If you had such a great memory, you wouldn't have to do that.
most of what I've talked about hasn't been on here. I pulled up the NHANES and I pulled up the smoking one. Like that was it.
Right.
See now,
Okay.
like
You also
look.
pulled up the Twinkie diet.
Oh, Mark Hobb. Okay, I
Yeah,
pulled
I
up
saw you
that for a
pull up the
couple
Twinkie
details.
diet.
Okay,
Again,
I pulled
false
up Mark Hobb.
information you're spreading. It's another example of it.
No, it's not. I mean, you have
Okay,
no evidence of
sure.
that anyway. But anyways,
Can
the
we get
point here is,
back to the topic and stop
yeah, I would love
talking
to.
about cigarettes? Because
No,
that
no,
wasn't part of our topic.
no. It's not. So this is the other thing. It's a what's called a reductio. Are you familiar with that term?
A what? Reductio?
Reductio. Yeah.
Reductio? No, I'm not
No.
familiar with that term.
Okay.
Explain.
So basically, what it is in cases where somebody's making a certain type of claim, and they're providing a certain rationale for it. So you might say something like, "I believe X because of Y," or "I don't believe X because of Y." But so what I'll do is I'll take that Y and I will apply it to another situation to see if you're consistent with that. If you're inconsistent in the way that you apply your beliefs, then you can just make up anything you want to support anything, and it won't matter. It doesn't matter if it's consistent. It can be all over the map. That's why I bring
Okay,
up
and who
these
decides the
comparisons.
consistency? You?
No, no, no,
Like,
no.
who
Well, either you're
decides
consistent or
what's
you're not. No, no,
consistent and what's not
no,
consistent?
no. It's because either it's consistent or not.
Well,
Like consistency is pretty
according
objective.
to who?
No, no.
That's a perception.
So can I? Here, I'll have to explain. So, um, if I were to say in one situation that I believe, let's just say I said I believe studies that are funded by the NIH. Let me just say that. And then you provide a study that is funded by NIH, and I'm like, I don't like that. And you're like, well, it's funded
Yeah,
by
maybe
NIH.
it's
You said you
because
like studies.
yeah,
No,
maybe it was
no.
because
Hold
it was
on,
a bad study.
hold on. Yes, I would agree with that. But let's say you cite something that's funded by NIH, and I'm like, I don't like that. And you're like, well, why do you like those ones that are funded by NIH? And you said specifically for that reason, but you don't like these ones. Then I would have to expand on why that is and explain why I'm treating those differently. Right, that's the
Yeah,
point. If I have if I have an actual valid reason, like, oh, in the methods they did this wrong or whatever,
right.
then fine, that's acceptable. But if I'm just like, oh, I just don't like it, and even though I said I like studies funded by NIH, I just don't like this one.
All right.
That would be
No, I
irrelevant.
understand. So
Yeah,
you want me to elaborate more
yeah,
on why I don't resonate with the
yeah.
Twinkie diet,
Essentially,
right?
why
Is that
why
okay? I can
yeah,
elaborate
like
more if that's what
why
you'd like.
there's asymmetrical application of
Yes,
your yes.
I hear you. I can elaborate on why I think that the Twinkie study is BS if you would like.
Sure, that
Is that what
or the
you
smoking
want?
examples if we want to go more extreme, like
I mean,
either way.
Is that what you're asking for? You asked me to elaborate on the Twinkies study to
Well, I mean,
explain why I
at this
don't
point,
resonate with that? Because I
at,
can do that.
no, we can. At this point, I don't know how important that is, but I was
Yeah, I
trying
don't
to
think
explain
it's
why.
important either.
I was just trying to explain why I'm bringing up these hypotheticals or these comparisons is to understand why you have a differing sort of application of your beliefs in those two cases, or at least what looks like that from the outside without further elaboration. That's why.
Yeah. Well, for starters, because there's no reliability behind the study. It was just a random researcher posting an experience that he shared, and it could be like the Liver King, where he's like, "Yeah, I got big eating raw liver," but he was actually taking steroids. Like people do things like that for a credibility, for attention, all kinds of reasons. And I don't know who
Mhm.
this random researcher is, but the Twinkie, honestly, the study sounded crazy because I happen to know that the Mediterranean diet is a very healthy diet. And I also happen to know that living on Twinkies and Doritos is very unhealthy. So the idea of going from a Mediterranean diet to a Twinkie and Dorito diet and feeling better is kind of shady. And the fact that somebody, here's the main thing that throws my intuition, like my truth dar off. The fact that somebody would even try to do it in and of itself is shady. Like, why would somebody even think I'm going to go
Oh,
from
I
this
can
really
explain.
healthy diet to Twinkies and Doritos and then tell people, hey, guess what? I felt great. It seems to me like an agenda.
So he explains the motivations behind it. So he's a teacher at that university for nutrition as well. And so the reason he was is his students didn't believe that you could actually lose weight, like, or I mean, I'm sure some of his students did, but it was to essentially prove to his students that you could lose weight eating essentially an ultra processed food diet. And so he
Yeah,
actually
because it's
did it.
calories. It's
Yeah,
calorie in, calorie
exactly.
out. Sure.
So that
Right.
was just to give you that
Okay.
background info on why he did it.
Great.
That is why he did it, just to prove
Okay.
that point. Not
Okay.
that he
That makes
necessarily thought it
sense.
was good long term. Like I'm sure he doesn't think it would be good long term.
Yeah.
But the reason he did it, and by his surprise, ended up feeling pretty good doing it, was anyway that.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense because whether you eat, a pound of nails and a pound of feathers is still a pound. If you're eating a pound of meat and half a pound of Twinkies, you're gonna lose weight because you're eating less food. So yeah, I mean that makes sense. But in the feeling great, I mean, I don't really have anything to say about that. I don't know that he did or didn't. Or
But
it's
would it
hard.
be
Like I
shocking?
said, what else might he have been on? I don't know. There's too many unknowns. I don't know anything about that study, so
But
I can't
would it
comment on
really
it.
be shocking though? You think it would be shocking losing 27 pounds, not feeling better? Like I mean, or feeling better in his case?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there could have also just been that. Like he might have just been feeling good because he's losing weight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which would then bring me back to then let's say that that's the case. Let's just say again, I know you don't like hypotheticals. Let's say that this is the case, and what he's saying is true. Um, in that case, would you suspect that based on the fact that he lost weight and everything, that the Twinkie diet would be a healthier alternative?
No, because I don't think that weight is all that matters, and I also don't think that the way a person feels is all that matters. So no, I don't think that makes it a healthier alternative.
So
I think that there's more
that's
factors to
interesting.
health than how somebody feels and how much they weigh.
So that's super interesting then,
For
because
sure. Yeah, because
how then?
intuition and feeling are different. Emotion and intuition are not the same thing. So
Sure, sure. I don't disagree there, but then, but let's say intuitively, in this case, he thought that it was the right thing to do, and that it would suit him well in the long term.
can you compound on that question a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit? I don't
yeah.
know that it
Let's
was
just say it.
great.
Like, so we have the example Twinkie diet. He had some Doritos, whatever, on the side, um, and lost weight, felt better, improved actually biomarkers as well. I would say probably due to the weight loss, and just intuitively he felt that it was the right thing for him to do long term. Would that then be a healthy approach for him?
I think that yes, if he lost weight and his biomarkers improved simply because he lost weight, throughout that window, it was probably a healthy practice. And when it started to become unhealthy, he probably would have felt and known that.
But what if
So I would
it didn't? Like, what if
say,
he
I
just
would
felt good?
say, I would say that's a hypothetical, and it's very unlikely that he would have. That's what I would say.
But like, let's just say he did. Let's just say he
No,
felt good for extended
no.
periods.
I don't think if no, he could have been delusional. He could have been going through
See,
a psychosis. He could have been going through a lot of
that's
things. I don't,
crazy.
again, I literally just told you that emotion and intuition aren't the same thing. We can't follow our feeling. Intuition and feeling aren't the same thing. I think what you should be asking if you want to know my stance is what is intuition? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah. Define it. Yeah. Define it.
Yeah. So intuition is an observation. It comes from awareness. It doesn't come from emotion. We have our, our spiritual, our light body, which the chakras, the aura, right? You're aware of all this, right?
Loosely. Yeah. I wouldn't
Loosely,
say I'm
right?
a. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a chakra meridians from the root chakra, which develops all of our, sex hormones and the gonads and all that, all the way up to the crown chakra, where the brain, the third eye, the pineal gland is. And between that are all these different energy meridians and an aura that comes out of our heart, which spans about 6 feet by 6 feet around the entire body. And within this entire space, we sense everything, both internally and externally. And this is our awareness. And this is where our intuition comes from, where we can start to sense what's healthy, what's right, and what's not. Emotion and feeling is very different. A lot of that comes from craving. A lot of it might come from the parasites in our stomach. It could come from addictions, due to chemical imbalances in our brain. And so just because somebody feels good doesn't mean that they're following their intuition, because if they're going through a cognitive decline or if they're going through a cognitive break, they might not be in touch with their intuition. They might not be able to feel their energy body. And if they're eating Doritos and Twinkies for 10 weeks, it's actually likely that their energy body would shut down and they would lose touch with it. And at that point, it just becomes an addictive practice. So, yeah, I would answer your question by saying no. If he continues to feel good, that does not mean that it's necessarily healthy.
But let's say that his intuition, as you've described, also points towards it being a healthy practice.
If his intuition, as I described, points to that, eating Twinkies and Doritos
Mhm.
as being a healthy practice, then there might be something that I don't know about Twinkies and Doritos, and I'm open to being mind blown.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, that's really it. Like,
Yeah.
if that's your conclusion, and that's how you formulate kind of your opinions or your evidence, and you're at least, again, this would be a case of you being consistent with that, in this hypothetical. Then yeah, I don't think there's anything really to debate there. I mean, I personally think that's a ridiculous way or a ridiculous conclusion to
Well, yeah,
come
but
to.
that would never happen. It's a
But
ridiculous hypothetical. So you're
but
posing ridiculous questions and making ridiculous hypotheticals that take this conversation way off
no,
path. And
I,
I think
I,
that I honestly think that it's a missed opportunity for like a deeper conversation that could have been a lot more productive, because you're talking about crazy
no,
hypotheticals. And
but
there's no
see,
need for that.
again, the hypothetical is to see if, again, you are consistent with the way that the way that you apply your standards or your beliefs. And in that situation, you were, but that would lead you to thinking that, yeah, it could be healthy long term.
Yeah,
I,
right. But
I, I
this debate wasn't about whether or not I am consistent with my beliefs. Why
no,
are
no,
you focusing
no.
in on whether or not the person on the other end of the debate is consistent with his beliefs? That wasn't part of our
No,
debate.
so
Not
it's
what-
a part of it's a really critical component to debate, period, right? So if we're debating a topic like do people adhere to the guidelines, and we get into a discussion of, oh, I like this type of evidence or I like this type of evidence, we have to unpack why you believe in or you utilize certain types of evidence. And so that's what I'm getting to here, because that's of critical importance. Otherwise, we're just spewing opposing claims at each other and not getting anywhere, not understanding how we formulate those, why we formulate them. And
Okay.
at the end of the day, if you're inconsistent in applying them, well, then it suggests bias.
Right.
If you're consistent in
So,
applying them, I actually
okay.
do really appreciate that.
Sure.
I actually respect the fact that you would apply them consistently, more so than if you just like dug your heels in and refused.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. I personally feel like we went off track trying to figure out whether or not I'm consistent with my beliefs. I don't personally feel like that was necessary, but I hope we can get back on track and talk about the dietary guidelines and what's going on in the world and in health, and like something more
Yeah,
productive. Yeah.
and I mean, from there, like I still don't think we've gotten an answer to this. I mean, it's going to devolve back into differences as far as how we apply or I guess how we evaluate the evidence, but I still haven't really gotten an answer to the question about like how do we how do we conclude that people are following guidelines when like
Yeah,
literally never seen
and
any kind of
I
data.
did, yeah. So I did answer that question, like I said before. I think that there's a spectrum of following, and we definitely disagree on this. I think that the fact that the dietary guidelines have always consistently allowed for or recommended, whatever word you want to call it, a certain amount of sweets, sugars, refined grains, and that everybody happens to have those things in their diet. I think that that is a sort of following. They might not be following it 100%, but by eating grains, by drinking and eating pasteurized dairy, which they should not be doing, and the USDA is advising people that they should have dairy, but pasteurized dairy because they're outlawing raw dairy, another poison, and then the meat. But where does the meat come from? It has hormones and antibodies, and it's raised in fear, and it's all this terrible stuff. And people don't have another choice but to get that meat, again, another toxin, and then a whole bunch of grains. So people are for sure following the guidelines to a certain extent, maybe not 100% when it comes to portion, but they're all eating the things that the USDA is requiring them eat. And I don't think that the My Plate and the food pyramid and the USDA should be allowing for pasteurized dairy like at all, and should be you know re, uh suggesting that people eat any sweets and refined grains at all. I don't think that should be part of it. That's my opinion. And I think that a lot of it is, to be honest, yeah, like I said before, it's kind of like a gateway drug, the way that it affects our insulin, and it inspires people to reach for other things like pharmaceutical chemicals or cigarettes or whatever it is to make them feel better, because the refined grains and the things that the USDA is saying they can eat is making them feel bad, you know? So I think it's a sort of a snowball effect.
So I mean, there's a couple things there. For one, with adherence to the guidelines, like I don't disagree that there are certain parts within the guidelines that people are somewhat, I guess, consuming, and that's just simply because the guidelines cover like all the main food groups. Of course, people are going to be eating some from each food group to a degree. What I would be more concerned with when someone says that people are following the guidelines or have been following the guidelines, I would look at like, are they hitting at least the majority of the targets? Are they hitting 80% of the targets, for example? Or I mean, that's the number that I threw out. I know that's some number that's been used in some of the literature, and the numbers that like the percentages of people hitting those targets is like between 1% and 2%. It's incredibly low. Now, yeah, sure, you can argue that people might be following or people might be consuming X amount of grains, they might be consuming X amount of meat, very little vegetables, although, yeah, some people are consuming a little bit here and there. Um, but at the end of the day, like, does that really qualify as following the guidelines? Like, I
To
wouldn't
some
say so just because,
extent, it's
well,
not
yeah,
like a yes or no thing. It's more of a how much thing.
sure, because I mean, look, the guidelines cover fruits, veggies, they cover meat, poultry, seafood, dairy, eggs, nuts and seeds. They have soy products, they have beans, peas. Um, yeah, everyone's going to be consuming some of those in some amount. Like that's like your whole diet basically. That's the vast majority of what people are going to be consuming. But just because they happen to be consuming some amount of those foods, I don't think would qualify as following the guidelines.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you know what I
yeah.
mean?
I would qualify that as following loosely, but following. Like for
But like
example, I
like
don't eat
what
that
else?
stuff. I don't
So for
follow the guidelines. I don't eat grains and
but you
refined
eat meat.
sugars and all that.
But you eat
I
meat,
eat
right? You
meat.
eat meat
I
and you
eat
eat
meat, fruits, and
veggies.
vegetables. I eat meat, fruits, and vegetables. I don't eat all the
And
other
those
things on the guidelines.
but those are in the like meat, fruits, and veggies are all in the guidelines. So by your own definition, you'd be loosely following the guidelines.
Well, considering I don't eat the grains, which is at least a quarter of the guidelines. Um,
But meat,
and like for
meat
example,
and veggies and
I wouldn't
fruits.
consider no, I wouldn't consider a vegan as somebody who follows the guidelines, because they don't eat everything that's in the guidelines. In order to follow the guidelines, I would say by definition you have to eat everything that's in the guidelines. That's what I would consider following the guidelines. So because
But
I
like
don't eat refined
a lot of
sugars,
people,
I don't follow the
I see.
guidelines.
So a lot of people
That's
don't eat seafood. Seafood consumption isn't super prevalent. Like actually, the adherence to the seafood recommendation, which is very low to begin with, is terribly low. So would that, since people aren't hitting that food group or that category, would that mean that most people aren't following the guidelines?
I yeah, if they're not eating seafood at all, like if that's not part of their
Like the
diet at
majority
all,
of
I
people, yeah,
mean,
the majority of people don't
don't
consume it. Like,
ever eat
I mean,
seafood?
well, I mean, the guidelines
I
are
don't know.
per
It's
day.
pretty,
Well, no,
pretty.
but the guidelines are per daily consumption. The vast majority of people aren't even consuming it weekly, let alone daily.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's unfortunate. Um, that's not a good
But if
thing.
that's the
You
case,
should be consuming seafood.
but then by your own definition, like vegans who don't eat meat, like yourself who doesn't eat grains, would that mean that most people do not follow the guidelines
No, because I don't know that most. Can you say most people don't eat seafood?
daily?
Uh,
Absolutely,
what
absolutely.
demographic is this from?
So it's ages one and up.
Wh- Yeah, okay, maybe 2 and 3 year olds aren't
No,
eating
no,
a lot of fish sticks
no,
these
one
days,
and up.
but
No, like
what?
one till
That's what
till
I'm saying.
elderly, like till
Like,
I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know if
that's one and up from what part of the world, what part of
America,
America, what part of the state, what
No, America.
like
It's nationally representative in America.
yeah, again, when you throw these statements out there, like I really would have to pick apart the study to get a sense of how accurate this is and who and what they're talking about. Maybe they're, for all I know, they're talking about a very impoverished area that doesn't have access to
No,
seafood. I don't know.
nationally representative. No, it's nationally representative from all over the U.S., representing the population as a whole.
According to who? Nobody has ever
No,
asked me. I've never been part of a study on whether or not people eat seafood. So who are they asking? Where is this information coming from? I
so
eat seafood, but
okay,
nobody's
so
ever asked me that. So they missed out on one person. Maybe they missed out on thousands more. I don't know what this study is.
no, so the NHANES is through like the census, like census reports that would be done annually,
Mhm.
biannually, whatever. So
Okay.
it's through that they collect a lot of the NHANES data, and then I believe it's a subset of them. Again, spreading it so nationally representative, who they will survey for the dietary stuff.
Sure.
There's a few details in there I can look up. Again, maybe it's my memory. I don't know. I have to look up the study for the exact little details, as we were joking
Well,
earlier.
the
But
details
um,
are actually a really big deal
yeah,
because,
sure,
like
sure.
I said, you
But
can use studies to prove any point you want if you hide behind the studies of other
oh no,
people that you don't know.
no,
That's all you're doing is
no,
hiding behind studies to try to
so
prove a
this,
point.
so
Well,
this is
again,
going back.
when I start talking, you interrupt me immediately or shake your head or laugh or do something obnoxious and rude. But when you're talking, and I start speaking, I'm like the big bad bully that interrupts you. So I would like to actually say something right now, if that's okay with
Go
you.
ahead, go ahead.
Right. So you're hiding behind studies, and that's something that a lot of people do when they don't actually have the personal experience to talk. Like, for example, have you ever done ketosis for a year? Have you ever done that?
No,
No, so you don't know what it does. You just don't. All you do is you hide behind literature that was made by people you don't know. I have done ketosis for a year. I've done veganism for a year. I have personally tried these things. I literally know what it is. And that is where intuition comes from. So, yeah, it's funny how you get so reactive when you hear things you don't like. My point of this debate was to talk about the importance of intuition. And the only way to develop an intuition is through personal experience. You have to try things to know what they're about. You can't just hide behind studies made by people you don't know.
so can I respond? You done?
Um, as long as you don't say something about smoking cigarettes,
I
sure.
might, but I'm going to start with something else.
You probably will. Can you
Okay.
say something a little bit more accurate
Yeah.
to our conversation?
So yeah, no. So I am. So for one, it's not this idea of hiding behind studies. For one, if we're making claims about people, we're not saying ourselves. We're not talking about our own experience with something. The claims are about people as a whole, the American population, following dietary guidelines. How the hell does personal experience play into that? You don't. It's not like you know what every single person or the bulk of the population is doing as far as their diet. And then second, you just go back to
Can
we
I
can't
answer that before you
again.
move on? Or
No, I just want to make one more point,
okay.
and then secondly, and I know you won't like it, but when you go to again, you can't trust the studies. You need to try things. I would just go back to the smoking unless you can provide a rationale for why that should be treated differently.
Yeah, but you're not talking about food now. You're talking about drugs, and that's a different conversation.
But
So
the
again, that's
logic, no,
not
but the
relevant.
logic. but the logic still applies. So your logic
That's
is we
like,
shouldn't
no,
trust the
that's
studies. We
stupid.
need to try stuff for ourselves.
That's like saying, okay, studies prove if I jump out of a plane I'll die, but maybe I should try it myself. Like you're reaching. That's what reaching is.
No,
You're
no,
just
no.
reaching, dude.
I would agree that both of those statements are stupid. I would
No,
agree
but
that saying we need to
yeah,
try
and you're
smoking to know.
that's
But
exactly, they
well,
are stupid, and you're
hold on.
reaching by
But
making
no, no.
statements like
But
that.
hold on. I would say the same thing about diet. I would say the same thing saying you need to try a diet to know if
No,
it's
but it's
healthy or
not,
not.
because diet's different. Because
Why?
the diet, you are what you eat, and you can feel what's happening within the moment. And the more present you are, the more you can feel what you eat. You know how it's affecting your body. You know how it makes you sleep, how it makes you poop, how it makes you think, whether it gives you brain fog or helps you focus. You know these things. If you eat Twinkies for 2 days and nothing else, you know immediately how that affects your body. And this random study from some random guy that you threw out there, yeah, you laugh because you know it was BS. It was some random study you threw. You can look, you can find anything on the internet. We all know that. I wanted to have a genuine, authentic debate and conversation with you to uncover truth, and you're throwing out random studies from some crazy research on the internet that ate Doritos and Twinkies for 10 weeks. And to be honest, I think um, you shouldn't have done that. That really discredits you. And anyway, the conversation about food is different than the conversation about drugs and jumping out of planes. So let's just keep it to
But
foods,
but
okay?
but no. To be clear, you didn't actually explain why we should treat those differently. You just said we should.
Yeah, I
So like it's not
just
it's not that
dude, I
like
just
again.
explained why. I
No, no,
just
please,
explained why, because it's a
please let me
slower
finish. Look,
process,
I
because
sat
it's
through that
something
entire,
that you
I
can
sat through your
feel.
entire explanation. I sat through that
All
entire
right.
explanation without
And
saying
you don't
anything. No,
understand.
no,
Okay.
and I would like to respond. So you said that, or I said that saying that we need to smoke to know if it's bad for us, or we need to jump out of a plane to know if it's bad for us, are both stupid. I said that, you agreed.
Yes, they're both
Then
stupid.
I would also apply that to diet and saying that in order to know if diet is
All
good or
right.
bad. No,
Okay. So, all right, let me
please
know.
let
I
me
have a question for
finish.
you. No, I
Please
have a
let
question.
me
No, you've
finish. No,
spoken enough,
please,
and I have a
please,
question
no.
for you.
I
So,
just
there's a
sat through you
study.
talking for
No,
like
no,
2 minutes
there is a.
straight. I
I
just
have a
sat through you talking for
hypothetical
two
for you.
minutes
I
straight.
haven't
No,
asked you a single
no, no, no.
hypothetical, and now I have a hypothetical
And
for you.
yes, and
A
you can write it
doctor
down and
tells
save
you
it.
that a
No, you can
study
write
went
it down
off
and save
that
it.
proved
No, you can
that
write.
living
You can
on
write and.
nothing,
Oh
no,
my
that
God.
living on
No,
nothing but
this is
ants is
hilarious.
good for you.
This is
So you
hilarious.
eat nothing but ants
This
because
is
the doctor
absolutely
told you it was
hilarious.
good for you, and every day you feel worse and worse and worse, but the study told you that it was good for you. My hypothetical for you is, do you follow your intuition and the way that it's making your body feel, or do you continue to do what the doctor told you to do because the study said it was good for you?
So to be clear, you cut me off
Are
again, and
you going to
you
answer
did,
the
and
question
no,
or not? Because you've
I
asked me a
am.
lot of
No, I
crazy,
am.
dumb
I
hypotheticals, and especially for an adult.
I
And I would
I
like
am.
you to answer my
I, I,
dumb
I, I,
hypothetical now.
I will answer it. I just want to clarify for everybody here, and everyone just saw that you cut me off and then spoke over. But also,
Yes, you're the victim, and we're all supporting you. Go ahead,
great.
answer the question
So
now.
you're just so I'm clear because there was back and forth there. Your question is if a study came out showing that eating just ants was good for you, and to like just for sake of argument, do you mean like they're looking at hard long term outcomes,
Yes,
cardiovascular, cancer?
yes,
Okay, okay,
a study came
okay.
out that said that eating ants was going to be really good for you, lower your
Mm-hmm.
risk of cardiovascular disease or whatever it was, and you continued to eat them but felt worse every day. Would you follow your intuition and your feeling and stop eating them, or go by what the study and the doctor said?
Oh, I would if I felt like crap acutely, I wouldn't be following that diet.
Then we're
Absolutely not. But
then we agree. That's my point. That's
but
exactly what
let
I've
me
been trying
finish.
to say the
See,
last
you
hour.
won't let me finish because you know that I don't fully agree. I would not claim that diet is harmful. Like I would not claim that by and large, it is harmful to people. I would not say that on like let's say in the study that the vast majority of people did not experience what I experienced. I would not then claim that en masse that is harmful for the population. I would not tell people that they shouldn't be recommending it as a whole. I would just say that yes, there are individual differences. We all know that there are individual differences between people. Some people's guts respond better to certain foods than others, whatever. But generally, they're within this umbrella that is associated with good health outcomes, and you
Right.
want to find how can you fit into that
Mhm.
umbrella while
Exactly.
catering it towards your own acute needs.
Okay, good. We're actually really close right now, and we're kind of in the same boat. And I would like to address that hypothetical onto grains. and the way that I feel about grains, and the way that I think that grains are actually affecting people, but that people keep eating them because studies and doctors are telling them that they're good for them. I think grains are causing obesity, brain fog, diabetes, and a lot of other issues, but people keep eating them because the dietary guidelines have them in there. That is my opinion, my personal experience, and there's actually a lot of studies on ketosis and autophagy that back that up.
But there's also studies on like whole grain intake suggesting positive outcomes. There's studies on
Yes,
like
there
high carb
is.
diets in general that are
Yes,
suggesting good outcomes.
there
And
is.
you're and
And the
if I had
problem
to
is that the
guess,
USDA, and again, bringing it back to the beginning of the conversation, the USDA collaborates with Big Ag, Big Pharma, and runs the research and development for a lot of these studies. So there's a conflict of interest there. That's the problem.
wait, so not
And
necessarily
that's
even
why I don't trust these studies be-
wait,
because
but
of the
even
conflict
if
of interest.
okay, but even if they weren't funded, you still wouldn't trust it.
No, no, not that's
No, no.
not true.
So if I pull up a study on dietary guideline adherence and all cause mortality and cardiovascular disease right now that receive no funding, you would accept the
You're
results?
no, because you're pulling up stuff. I would have to look at them and get back to you. I'm not going to take your word for it, is what I'm saying.
So why don't we do this? Why don't I provide you and I can pull it up on screen if people want to see it so it's bookmarked here. There are we'll use this one. So why don't we look at this meta-analysis? This is the latest. The Healthy Eating Index is a measure of adherence to the U.S. dietary guidelines and all-cause and cause-specific mortality. You see the authors there, very recent. Why don't we pause here? You go and look at that when you're ready for round two, because it's been almost 2 hours now. I do have to leave soon.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
and
Yeah, it
then we
has.
can,
Wow.
yeah,
Bro, time flies. Two
yeah,
hours.
or almost because we started a bit late. But yeah,
Man, it
so
has
why
been.
why don't we pick it up with that afterwards? And you can let me know what the issues are because this one did not receive any funding. None of the authors had conflicts either.
Yeah, that sounds good. Send me that study and we'll take it from there.
Okay, sounds good. Well, yeah, thanks for hopping on then. I know it's been a while. It looks like we had. I
Yeah,
wonder. I'll get the stats in a minute as far as how many people were in and out, but it
right.
um, looks like we were hovering between like 50 and 70 people the whole time. So,
Uh,
uh,
I randomly glanced down at the comments and saw some very entertaining things. So I think that I think people got something out of it, which is really important. I enjoyed this conversation with you. It's our first conversation together, and it's been nice. We disagree on a lot of things, but I like you as a person. I think you're very headstrong and passionate, and I appreciate that. So yeah, I look forward to the next conversation.
yeah, sounds good. Thanks. And yeah, I'm happy to do another one. And just someone's mentioning like provide studies ahead, whatever to look at. Yeah, just so you're aware, people are aware, we did share in advance, not super far in advance necessarily, but yeah, we did. So yeah, next time we'll catch up again, and I'll
All right.
save this and I will collab you on it, like you'd asked. Okay.
Sounds good, brother. Have a great
All
night.
right. See ya.
Bless.